On a cold, windy night, four friends, John, Sarah, Mike, and Emily, arrive at an old abandoned house at the edge of town. They are curious about the rumors that the house is haunted and decide to explore. They push open the creaky front door and step inside. The air is cold and musty, the wooden floorboards creak under their feet, and they use their flashlights to see. In the living room, they find an old tattered couch and a dusty coffee table. On the wall, there is a large cracked mirror. Suddenly, they hear a whispering sound, but no one is there. They decide to explore upstairs. The staircase creaks loudly as they climb. The hallway is long and dark, with several closed doors. A cold breeze seems to come from nowhere, making them shiver. They open one of the doors and find a room with old children's toys scattered on the floor. The air is even colder here. Suddenly, a toy car moves on its own, and they hear a child's laughter. Frightened, they rush downstairs and find a door leading to the basement. They open it and descend into the darkness. The basement is damp and cold, with a feeling of dread in the air. In the basement, they find an old trunk. When they open it, a ghostly figure of a woman appears, her face twisted in sadness. She reaches out towards them, and they feel an icy chill. Terrified, they run up the stairs and out of the house. The door slams shut behind them, and they can still hear the whispers and laughter. They vow never to return. It was a stormy night, the kind that forces even the bravest souls to stay indoors. Sarah sat alone in her dimly lit living room, the howling wind rattling the windows. She glanced at the clock, 11:45 p.m. Just 15 more minutes until midnight. She tried to focus on the book in her lap, but a sense of unease crept over her, making it impossible to concentrate. Suddenly, there was a loud knock at the door. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Who could it be at this hour, in such weather? She hesitated, then slowly walked to the door, her footsteps echoing in the silence of the house. Peeking through the peephole, she saw nothing but darkness. "Hello," she called out, her voice trembling slightly. No response. She turned away, thinking it must have been the wind playing tricks on her, when the knock came again, louder this time. Determined to face her fears, she unlocked the door and opened it a crack. A blast of cold air hit her, and there on the doorstep stood a small child, drenched and shivering. The child's face was hidden beneath a dark, hooded raincoat. "Can I come in?" the child asked, voice barely audible over the storm. Sarah hesitated. Something about the child felt off, but she couldn't leave them out in the cold. "Of course," she said, stepping aside to let the child in. "What's your name?" The child didn't answer. Instead, they silently moved past her and stood in the center of the living room, water pooling around their feet. Sarah closed the door and turned to face the child, noticing that despite the soaking clothes, the child's face was eerily dry. "Where are your parents?" Sarah asked. But the child remained silent. She moved closer, intending to help remove the wet raincoat, but the child stepped back, finally lifting their head. Sarah gasped. The face beneath the hood was not that of a child, but of something far older with hollow, sunken eyes and a twisted grin. "They couldn't make it," the entity whispered, voice dripping with malice. Fear paralyzed Sarah as the creature took a step forward. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. The lights flickered and the room grew colder. Suddenly, the clock struck midnight, and with each chime, the creature grew larger and more menacing. Sarah stumbled backward, her mind racing for an escape. As the final chime echoed through the house, the creature lunged at her, its bony fingers outstretched. In a final act of desperation, Sarah grabbed the nearest object, a heavy candlestick, and swung it with all her might. The creature let out an unearthly screech and vanished into thin air, leaving Sarah alone in the dark, trembling and gasping for breath. The storm outside began to subside, and a strange calm settled over the house. Sarah looked around, her heart still pounding, but the creature was gone. She locked the door, bolted the windows, and spent the rest of the night huddled on the couch, the candlestick clutched tightly in her hands. As dawn broke, Sarah finally allowed herself to relax. She had survived the night, but she knew deep down that the creature was still out there, waiting for another stormy night. Blackwood Manor had long been abandoned and forgotten, standing as a dark silhouette against the evening sky. On a chilly, misty night, Lily, a young and curious journalist, arrived to uncover the truth behind the rumors of hauntings. She parked her car at the rusted gates, feeling a mixture of excitement and dread. The mansion's windows stared back at her like soulless eyes. Lily pushed open the creaking door of Blackwood Manor. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the smell of decay. She turned on her flashlight, revealing a grand but dilapidated foyer. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling, and old furniture lay covered in white sheets. Her footsteps echoed in the vast, empty space as she ventured further inside. As Lily explored the mansion, she felt an icy breeze pass by her. Turning around, she saw a shadowy figure at the end of the hallway. The figure disappeared as quickly as it appeared, leaving her heart pounding. Determined to uncover more, she made her way to the library, hoping to find records of the mansion's history. In the library, Lily found rows of dusty old books. As she searched through them, she heard whispers and the sound of pages turning by themselves. She discovered an old journal belonging to the mansion's original owner, Lady Blackwood. The entry spoke of dark rituals and a curse that had been placed on the house and its inhabitants. Lily's exploration led her to a room filled with mirrors. As she walked through, her reflection seemed to move on its own, eyes following her with an unsettling intensity. One mirror in particular caught her attention. In it, she saw the ghostly figure of a woman crying, her eyes pleading for help. Lily reached out to touch the mirror, but the image vanished. Lily discovered a hidden door behind a tattered curtain in the study. She descended the creaky stairs into a dark, musty basement. The room was filled with strange symbols painted on the walls and old dusty books scattered on a table. She found a journal detailing the dark rituals and a curse placed on the house by Lady Blackwood. As Lily read the journal, the basement grew colder. A ghostly figure of Lady Blackwood appeared, her face twisted with rage. She pointed at Lily and screamed, "You should not have come here!" The walls shook and the air filled with a chilling wind. Lily knew she had to leave immediately. Lily bolted up the stairs, the spirit's screams echoing behind her. She raced through the mansion, the walls seeming to close in on her. She burst through the front door and into the night, gasping for breath. The house stood silent and still, but she could feel the weight of its curse pressing down on her. Back in her apartment, Lily reviewed the photos and notes she had taken. The evidence of the haunting was undeniable. She wrote her article, revealing the dark history of Blackwood Manor. As she finished, she felt a cold draft and heard Lady Blackwood's voice whisper, "You cannot escape the curse." Lily knew the haunting was far from over. In a quiet, small town nestled among rolling hills, the last rays of the setting sun paint the sky in hues of orange and pink. Cozy houses line the streets, their windows glowing warmly against the encroaching darkness. But beneath the tranquil facade, whispers of something sinister linger in the air. On the outskirts of town stands an old, abandoned house, its once grand facade now crumbling and decayed. Windows are boarded up, and the yard is overrun with weeds that seem to reach out like grasping fingers. Moonlight bathes the scene in an otherworldly glow, casting long, ominous shadows that seem to pulse with a life of their own. Inside the abandoned house, the living room is frozen in time, its once grandeur now a distant memory. Dusty furniture sits silent and still, draped in cobwebs that hang like gossamer threads from the ceiling. Moonlight filters weakly through cracks in the boarded-up windows, casting eerie patterns that dance upon the worn floorboards. Beyond the abandoned house stretches a dense forest, its twisted trees looming like silent sentinels in the darkness. Long, twisted shadows dance upon the forest floor, moving with an otherworldly grace. The air is thick with the sound of rustling leaves and the distant whispers that seem to echo through the trees, sending shivers down the spine of any who dare to venture within. In the kitchen of the abandoned house, decay holds sway, with peeling wallpaper and rusty appliances bearing witness to the passage of time. Moonlight filters weakly through grimy windows, casting eerie shadows that seem to writhe and twist upon the cracked linoleum floor, as if alive with some unseen presence. In the heart of the forest lies an ancient cemetery, its weathered headstones standing sentinel over the graves of generations long gone. Moonlight bathes the scene in an ethereal glow, casting shadows that seem to dance among the graves, whispering secrets of the past to any who will listen. Within the abandoned house, a desolate bedroom lies silent and still, its once cozy atmosphere now replaced by an oppressive sense of emptiness. A rotting bed frame stands as a silent sentinel against the decaying walls, while tattered curtains flutter in the breeze. Moonlight filters weakly through cracked windows, casting eerie shadows that seem to linger like phantoms in the night. A decrepit bridge spans a gaping chasm, its rusted metal groaning and creaking in the wind. Moonlight reflects off the murky waters below, casting eerie reflections on the moss-covered stones that line the riverbank. The air is heavy with the scent of decay, and a sense of foreboding hangs thick in the air. Deep within the bowels of the abandoned house lies the basement, a dark and musty chamber filled with cobwebs and decay. Moonlight filters weakly through a small barred window, casting eerie shadows that seem to dance upon the damp concrete floor like specters in the night. As dawn breaks, the town square is bathed in the soft light of a new day, casting long shadows that retreat before the encroaching sunlight. The darkness gives way to the promise of a new beginning, but the whispers of the shadows linger, a reminder of the horrors that lurk within the depths of the night. Blackwood Manor had always been a place of dark legends in the town of Ravenwood. On a foggy evening, Jack, a determined historian, arrived to uncover the truth about the mysterious disappearances linked to the mansion. He parked his car at the entrance, feeling a mixture of excitement and fear. The fog rolled in thick waves, almost swallowing the mansion whole. Jack pushed open the heavy wooden door, which creaked loudly. Inside, the mansion was dark and cold. Dust covered every surface and cobwebs hung from the ceiling. He turned on his flashlight, revealing a grand but neglected foyer. His footsteps echoed ominously as he walked down the main hallway, the air thick with a sense of abandonment. As Jack explored, he felt a sudden chill. He turned and saw a shadowy figure at the end of the hallway. It vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving him questioning his sanity. Determined, he continued to the library, where he hoped to find records about the mansion's dark past. In the library, Jack found rows of old, dusty books. As he searched through them, he heard whispers and the sound of pages turning on their own. He discovered an old diary belonging to the mansion's original owner, Thomas Blackwood. The entry spoke of dark rituals and a curse placed on the house. Jack's exploration led him to a room filled with mirrors. As he walked through, his reflection seemed to move on its own, eyes following him with an unsettling intensity. One mirror in particular drew his attention. In it, he saw the ghostly figure of a woman crying, her eyes pleading for help. He reached out, but the image disappeared. Jack discovered a hidden door behind a tattered curtain in the study. He descended the creaky stairs into a dark basement. The room was filled with strange symbols painted on the walls and old dusty books on a table. He found a journal detailing dark rituals and a curse placed on the house by its original owner, Thomas Blackwood. As Jack read the journal, the basement grew colder. A ghostly figure of Thomas Blackwood appeared, his face twisted with rage. He pointed at Jack and screamed, "You should not have come here." The walls shook, and the air filled with a chilling wind. Jack knew he had to leave immediately. Jack bolted up the stairs, the spirit's screams echoing behind him. He raced through the mansion, the walls seeming to close in on him. He burst through the front door and into the night, gasping for breath. The house stood silent and still, but he could feel the weight of its curse pressing down on him. Back in his apartment, Jack reviewed the photos and notes he had taken. The evidence of the haunting was undeniable. He wrote his article, revealing the dark history of Blackwood Manor. As he finished, he felt a cold draft and heard Thomas's voice whisper, "You cannot escape the curse." He knew the haunting was far from over.
Michael, a man in his late 30s, receives a surprising letter. His great-uncle, whom he barely knew, has passed away, leaving him an old manor in the remote countryside. Intrigued and financially struggling, Michael decides to visit the manor with his wife, Sarah, and their teenage daughter, Emily. Michael reads the letter aloud. It says we have inherited an estate. Sarah looks at him skeptically. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Michael nods. "We could use a fresh start. Besides, what harm could it do?" Emily, always up for an adventure, adds, "It sounds exciting. Let's go." The family arrives at the manor in the late afternoon. The mansion is grand but clearly neglected, surrounded by overgrown gardens and tall, dense trees. The sky is overcast, casting a gloomy shadow over the scene. Emily shivers. This place gives me the creeps. Michael tries to be optimistic. It's just old. We can fix it up. Sarah clutches Emily's hand. Let's stay close and see what's inside. Inside, the manor is filled with dust, cobwebs, and a musty smell. The furniture is covered with white sheets. As they explore, Emily finds an old, ornate mirror in one of the rooms. Unlike the rest of the house, the mirror's surface is strangely clean. "Look at this mirror," Emily calls out. Sarah touches the frame. It's beautiful, but it feels out of place. Michael frowns. Why is it so clean? That night, the family tries to settle in. Michael and Sarah fall asleep quickly, but Emily struggles. Around midnight, she hears faint whispers and feels a cold breeze. The mirror in her room begins to fog up, revealing words written from the inside. "Help us," it reads. Terrified, Emily runs to her parents' room. "Mom, Dad, there's something in the mirror." Michael, groggy, tries to comfort her. "It's just your imagination, Emily. Go back to sleep." The next day, the family visits the local library to learn more about the manor. They discover that it was owned by Michael's great-uncle, a reclusive man with a dark interest in the occult. Sarah reads from an old newspaper. Local recluse found dead under mysterious circumstances. Manor believed to be haunted. Michael sighs. This explains a lot. We need to be careful. Emily, still shaken, adds, "What if the spirits are still here?" Back at the manor, Michael discovers a hidden door in the basement. Inside, they find an old study filled with books on the occult, strange artifacts, and a large locked chest. Sarah examines a book. He was into dark stuff. This can't be good. Michael tries to open the chest, but fails. We need to find the key. There might be answers inside. Emily points to a strange symbol on the wall. I've seen this symbol before, in my room. That night, the hauntings escalate. Objects move on their own, and ghostly apparitions appear. Emily is dragged out of bed by an unseen force, and Sarah sees a shadowy figure standing at the end of the hallway, watching them. "We have to leave now," Sarah screams, but the doors are locked and won't open. Michael grabs an old book from the study. This book has instructions to banish the spirits. We need to perform the ritual. Desperate, the family gathers in the basement to perform the ritual. They light candles and arrange the symbols in a circle. Michael reads the incantation aloud, while Sarah and Emily hold hands, trembling. As the ritual progresses, the house shakes, and the spirits grow more agitated. A blinding light fills the room, and the spirits are drawn into the circle, screaming. "Keep going, Michael!" Sarah yells over the noise. With a final shout, Michael completes the incantation, and the spirits vanish. The house falls silent. The next morning, the manor feels different. The oppressive atmosphere is gone, and sunlight streams through the windows. The family packs up their belongings, relieved that the ordeal is over. "We should tell someone about this place," Sarah says, looking back at the manor. Michael nods. "Let's make sure no one else has to go through this." They drive away, leaving the manor behind. Back home, life seems to return to normal. But one night, Emily finds the old mirror in her room, even though they left it at the manor. Her heart races as she sees words slowly appear on the surface. "We are not done," it reads. Emily turns to see a shadowy figure standing in the corner, its eyes glowing with malevolence. She screams as the room plunges into darkness. Sophie arrived at Briarwood Manor, a sprawling estate she inherited from her great-uncle. The mansion stood alone on a hill, surrounded by gnarled trees and thick fog. As she approached, the gate creaked open on its own, setting her nerves on edge. She hesitated but walked through, determined to uncover the secrets of her inheritance. Sophie stepped inside the manor, greeted by a grand but dusty foyer. The air was heavy with the scent of decay. As she moved further in, the front door slammed shut behind her with a loud bang. Startled, she spun around, but no one was there. The only light came from her flickering flashlight. In the living room, old furniture was covered in white sheets. An antique clock ticked loudly, breaking the silence. Sophie noticed a photograph on the mantelpiece, showing her great-uncle with an unknown woman. Suddenly, she heard footsteps behind her. She turned quickly, but the room was empty. Sophie walked down a hallway lined with portraits of her ancestors. Their eyes seemed to follow her every move. She felt a chill as she passed by a particularly stern-looking man. As she continued, she heard a whisper, almost as if someone was calling her name. She froze, heart pounding. In the library, Sophie found shelves filled with dusty old books. One book in particular caught her eye, an old journal. As she read through it, she discovered it belonged to her great-uncle, detailing strange events and encounters with a dark presence. The room grew colder, and she felt like she was being watched. Behind a bookshelf, Sophie discovered a hidden door. She hesitated but felt compelled to open it. The door revealed a dark, narrow staircase leading down. Holding her flashlight, she descended, each step echoing in the silence. The air grew damp and cold. The basement was filled with old furniture and strange symbols painted on the walls. In the center stood an altar with black candles and an old book. As Sophie approached, the candles flickered to life, casting an eerie glow. She felt an overwhelming sense of dread as she heard distant whispers. Sophie's flashlight flickered and died, plunging her into darkness. The whispers grew louder, and she felt a cold hand on her shoulder. She spun around to see a ghostly figure of the unknown woman from the photograph, her eyes filled with sorrow. "Help me," the figure whispered. Terrified, Sophie ran up the stairs, the house seeming to come alive with shadows moving and doors slamming. She burst through the front door into the foggy night, her heart pounding. She didn't stop running until she reached her car. She looked back once more, vowing never to return. Breathing heavily, Sophie glanced back at the manor as she reached her car. In an upstairs window, she saw the ghostly figure of the unknown woman watching her. The whispers faded, but the memory of that night would haunt her forever. She drove away, never looking back.
In a small town shrouded in mist, there stood an ancient mansion, long abandoned and rumored to be haunted. Its dark silhouette cast a foreboding presence over the surrounding landscape, sending shivers down the spines of all who beheld it. Emily and Alex, two adventurous souls seeking thrills, stood before the rusted gates of the mansion. Despite warnings from locals, they were drawn to its mystery like moths to a flame. "Let's explore," Alex said, his voice tinged with excitement. As they crossed the threshold, the air grew heavy with the weight of centuries past. Cobwebs clung to the walls like spectral shrouds, and the faint echo of footsteps seemed to follow them into the darkness. Emily's heart raced as she whispered, "What have we gotten ourselves into?" Exploring deeper into the mansion's depths, Emily and Alex stumbled upon forgotten rooms filled with relics of a bygone era. Dust-covered portraits stared down at them with hollow eyes, and strange symbols adorned the walls. Each discovery sent a chill down their spines, but they pressed on, determined to uncover the truth. As they ventured further into the mansion, they encountered a presence unlike anything they had ever known. A spectral figure materialized before them, its ethereal form swathed in darkness. With a voice like ice, it whispered, "You dare to disturb my slumber?" With terror gripping their hearts, Emily and Alex fled through the twisting corridors of the mansion, pursued by unseen forces. Shadows seemed to reach out and grasp at them, and the air grew thick with the stench of decay. "We have to get out of here," Emily cried, her voice echoing in the darkness. At last they reached the heart of the mansion, where the source of its malevolence awaited. A swirling vortex of darkness engulfed them, threatening to consume their very souls. With trembling hands, Emily and Alex prepared to face the horrors that lurked within. In a final act of bravery, Emily and Alex confronted the darkness head-on. With artifacts in hand, they battled against the malevolent force that sought to claim them. With a burst of light, the curse that had plagued the mansion for centuries was finally broken. Emerging from the mansion's depths, Emily and Alex breathed a sigh of relief as sunlight broke through the clouds above. Though their adventure had been fraught with danger, they emerged stronger, their bond forged in the crucible of the haunted mansion. As they walked away from the mansion, Emily and Alex knew that they had faced their fears and triumphed over the darkness that had threatened to consume them. Though the mansion would forever remain a place of mystery and terror, they would always carry with them the lessons they had learned on that fateful night. A car rumbles down a winding road, disappearing into the dense forest. Inside, a group of friends chats nervously, excitement tinged with apprehension evident in their voices. They've heard the stories about Willow Grove, an abandoned village rumored to be haunted, but they've come seeking adventure. As they approach the outskirts of the village, a shroud of mist descends, cloaking the world in an eerie haze. The friends step out of the car and into Willow Grove, their footsteps echoing through the empty streets. The village appears frozen in time, its buildings crumbling and overgrown with ivy. Windows are shattered, doors hang off their hinges, and the air is heavy with the scent of decay. Despite the desolation, a sense of unease settles over the group as they venture further into the heart of the village. At the edge of the village stands a grand mansion, a relic of a bygone era, its windows boarded up and its once grand facade crumbling. The friends exchange nervous glances as they approach, their curiosity outweighing their fear. With trembling hands, they push open the creaking door and step inside, their hearts pounding in their chests. As the friends explore the mansion, they feel an oppressive presence weighing down on them, a sense of malevolence that seems to seep from the very walls. They hear whispers in the darkness and catch fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures out of the corners of their eyes. Fear grips them tight as they realize they're not alone in the house. As the night wears on, the friends uncover clues about the mansion's dark past. A family torn apart by tragedy, their spirits trapped within the walls for eternity. They find old photographs and newspaper clippings, piecing together the story of the family's demise. But as they delve deeper, they awaken something sinister that has been lying dormant for years. As the night progresses, the mansion comes alive with paranormal activity. Doors slam shut on their own, objects move of their own accord, and ghostly apparitions appear in the darkness. The friends huddle together, their screams echoing through the empty halls as they realize they're trapped in a nightmare from which there's no escape. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, the friends make a final stand against the evil that haunts the mansion. Armed with makeshift weapons and fierce determination, they confront the ghostly apparitions that roam the halls, knowing that their survival depends on their ability to banish the darkness that lurks within. As dawn breaks, the paranormal activity subsides, and the mansion falls silent once more. The friends emerge from the darkness, battered and bruised but alive. They exchange weary smiles, knowing that they've faced their fears and emerged stronger for it. Though the scars of their ordeal will never fully heal, they take solace in the knowledge that they've conquered the darkness that once threatened to consume them. Willow House, an old decrepit mansion, stands alone in the middle of an overgrown yard. Its windows are shattered, and ivy climbs up the stone walls. As the sun sets, the house is bathed in a gloomy light, casting long shadows that hint at the mansion's dark past. Inside Willow House, the foyer is filled with dust and cobwebs. An old chandelier hangs from the ceiling, its crystals dulled by grime. A grand staircase leads up to darkness, and broken furniture lies scattered, remnants of a time long forgotten. The living room is a snapshot of a bygone era, with a dusty sofa and a cold, empty fireplace. Portraits of stern-looking ancestors line the walls, their eyes seeming to follow every movement. The air is thick with the scent of neglect and faded grandeur. In the dining room, a long table is draped with a dusty, tattered tablecloth. Cobwebs hang from a once elegant chandelier, and old rusty cutlery is scattered about. The broken windows let in the cold night air, amplifying the room's eerie stillness. The kitchen is in disarray with broken cabinets and old pots and pans scattered around. The walls are stained and the floor is covered in debris. An old rusted knife lies on the counter, a silent witness to the passage of time. The grand staircase is enveloped in darkness. The wooden steps creak with every movement, and the banister is thick with dust. Faint, eerie whispers echo through the air, sending shivers down the spine. In the bedroom, a canopy bed stands covered in dust and cobwebs. Moonlight filters through cracked windows, casting eerie shadows on the peeling wallpaper. An old wardrobe in the corner has its doors slightly ajar, adding to the room's unsettling atmosphere. The attic is cluttered with old, forgotten items covered in sheets and dust. A single dim light bulb hangs from the ceiling, casting long shadows that dance eerily. The air is thick and musty, filled with the scent of decay and lost memories. A hidden door in the attic reveals a secret room. Inside, the space is filled with old books and strange artifacts. A large, dust-covered mirror dominates one wall, reflecting an eerie, distorted image. The atmosphere is heavy with an unseen presence, making the air feel thick and oppressive. As dawn breaks, Willow House is bathed in the soft light of the morning sun. The shadows recede, revealing the full extent of the mansion's decay. Birds begin to chirp, their cheerful notes bringing a sense of normalcy back to the eerie setting. The horrors of the night fade, but the memories linger, a haunting reminder of the echoes that inhabit Willow House.
Evelyn and her friends, Mark, Lisa, and John, stood at the edge of the dense forest, staring at the looming structure of Blackwood Mansion. The sun was setting, casting long shadows that seemed to reach out and grab at their feet. The mansion, abandoned for decades, had an eerie aura that made them shiver despite the warm summer evening. "I can't believe we are actually doing this," Lisa muttered, her voice trembling. "It's just for one night," Mark reassured her, though he didn't sound convinced. "We spend the night, prove the ghost stories wrong, and then leave." John, the skeptic of the group, laughed. "Ghosts aren't real. You'll see." Evelyn, the leader of the group, took a deep breath and stepped forward, pushing open the creaking iron gate. "Let's go." Inside the mansion, the air was thick with dust and the scent of decay. The wooden floorboards creaked under their feet as they explored the dimly lit corridors. Each room they entered seemed more decayed than the last, with peeling wallpaper and broken furniture strewn about. "Look at this," John called from one of the rooms. He held up an old photograph of a family, their faces blurred with age. "This must be the original owners." Evelyn shivered. "There's something unsettling about this place." Mark found an old journal on a dusty bookshelf. "Maybe this will tell us more about what happened here." As the night wore on, strange things began to happen. Lights flickered even though the mansion had no electricity. The sound of footsteps echoed through the halls, though no one was there. Whispers seemed to come from the walls themselves. Lisa clung to Mark. "Did you hear that?" "It's just the wind," John said, though his voice was unsteady. Evelyn held the journal tightly, her eyes scanning the pages. "There's something here. Something about a curse." A loud crash echoed from the hallway, and they all jumped. Mark grabbed a flashlight and led the way, finding a broken mirror on the floor, though no one had touched it. Evelyn's hands trembled as she turned the pages of the journal. "It says here that the family who lived here dabbled in dark magic. They summoned something they couldn't control." Mark's eyes widened. "What did they summon?" "A spirit of vengeance," Evelyn whispered. "It's trapped here, and it feeds on fear." John scoffed, but his face was pale. "This is ridiculous. There are no such things as spirits." Lisa pointed to the mirror. "Then how do you explain that?" Before John could answer, the temperature in the room dropped suddenly. Their breath fogged in the air, and a low growl resonated from the shadows. A shadowy figure emerged from the darkness, its eyes glowing red. The friends backed away, their fear palpable. The figure seemed to grow stronger, feeding on their terror. "Stay together!" Evelyn shouted, her voice breaking. John tried to act brave, stepping forward. "Leave us alone." The spirit lashed out, sending John crashing into a wall. Lisa screamed, and Mark pulled her back, trying to protect her. Evelyn held up the journal like a shield. "There's a way to banish it. We just have to find it." Evelyn frantically flipped through the journal, looking for the banishment ritual. "We need to find the symbols and say the words." Mark and Lisa barricaded the door, trying to buy them time. The spirit pounded against it, its growls growing louder. "Found it!" Evelyn cried, showing the page to the others. "Let's do this," Mark said, determination in his eyes. They quickly gathered the materials described in the journal, creating a circle of protection. Evelyn began to chant the words, her voice steady despite the fear. The spirit broke through the door just as Evelyn finished the chant. It roared in fury, but the circle of protection glowed, holding it at bay. "Keep chanting!" Evelyn yelled, her voice filled with authority. The spirit thrashed against the barrier, but it couldn't break through. Slowly, it began to weaken, its form dissolving into the air. With one final, deafening scream, the spirit vanished. The mansion fell silent, the oppressive atmosphere lifting. "We did it," Mark said, his voice filled with relief. The friends stumbled out of the mansion, the first light of dawn breaking over the horizon. They were exhausted, but relieved to be alive. "Let's never do that again," Lisa said, managing a weak smile. Evelyn held up the journal, now closed. "We should make sure no one else ever tries." John nodded. "Agreed. This place should stay forgotten." They walked away, the mansion behind them now just a shadow against the rising sun.
An old abandoned cabin stands alone in the heart of a dense forest. The wooden walls are rotting, and the windows are broken, giving the place a forlorn look. Tall, menacing trees surround the cabin, their long shadows stretching as the sun begins to set. Inside the cabin, the living room is a relic of the past, covered in dust and cobwebs. An old moth-eaten sofa sits in the center of the room, facing a fireplace with burnt logs. A single lantern flickers, casting eerie shadows on the walls, hinting at the secrets the cabin holds. The kitchen is in complete disrepair, with broken cabinets and rusted appliances. Moonlight filters through a cracked window, casting a pale glow on an old blood-stained knife lying on the counter. The air is thick with the scent of decay and forgotten memories. A narrow path winds through the dark forest, with twisted tree branches reaching out like skeletal hands. The ground is littered with fallen leaves, and an eerie mist rises from the forest floor, adding to the sense of unease that hangs in the air. In a clearing deep within the forest, the full moon illuminates an ancient stone altar. The altar is covered in moss and vines, and strange symbols are carved into the stone, glowing faintly in the moonlight. The air is thick with an otherworldly presence, making the skin crawl. A dark, fast-flowing river cuts through the forest, its black waters reflecting the moonlight. A rickety wooden bridge spans the river, creaking ominously with each gust of wind. The sound of the rushing water adds to the sense of isolation and dread. The basement of the cabin is dark and damp, with stone walls covered in moss. Rusted chains hang from the ceiling, swaying slightly in the draft. The floor is littered with broken bottles and old bones, remnants of a sinister past. A hidden room in the basement, revealed by a secret door, is filled with ancient books and strange artifacts. A large, dusty mirror dominates the room, reflecting an eerie glow. The air is thick with the scent of old parchment and something darker, more malevolent. As dawn breaks, the edge of the forest is bathed in a soft, golden light. The shadows recede, revealing the cabin in the distance. Birds begin to sing, their cheerful notes bringing a sense of normalcy back to the eerie setting, but the haunting memories of the night linger. In the morning light, the abandoned cabin appears less menacing, but still forlorn. The broken windows and overgrown yard are clearly visible, and a sense of unease still lingers in the air. The events of the night have left their mark, a reminder that some secrets are best left undisturbed.
Sarah and Jake arrive at the secluded cabin they rented for a weekend getaway. The cabin is nestled deep in the woods, surrounded by tall trees. As they unpack, Sarah notices an old photograph tucked away in a drawer. She feels a chill but shrugs it off. That night, strange occurrences begin. Sarah hears footsteps outside the cabin and sees shadows moving in the darkness. She wakes Jake, but he dismisses it as her imagination. Sarah feels uneasy, sensing an eerie presence looming around the cabin. The next day, Sarah explores the cabin's attic and finds an old journal hidden beneath a dusty trunk. The journal belongs to a previous tenant, detailing bizarre encounters with an unknown entity. Sarah's heart races as she reads about the cabin's dark past. As night falls again, the paranormal activity escalates. Sarah and Jake hear whispers echoing through the cabin and feel a cold draft despite the fireplace burning brightly. Sarah catches glimpses of a shadowy figure lurking in the corners, sending shivers down her spine. Driven by fear, Sarah confronts the entity, demanding to know its intentions. The air grows heavy as a voice whispers sinister messages, filling Sarah with dread. Jake tries to intervene, but the entity's malevolent presence overwhelms them. With the entity's grip tightening, Sarah and Jake decide to flee the cabin. They race through the forest, their hearts pounding with each step. Behind them, they hear haunting laughter echoing through the trees, fueling their desperation to escape. Even after leaving the cabin, Sarah and Jake can't shake the feeling of being watched. Strange occurrences follow them, reminding them of the entity's lingering presence. They vow never to return to the cursed cabin, haunted by the memories of their terrifying ordeal. Months later, Sarah and Jake still grapple with the trauma of their encounter at the cabin. They seek solace in each other's company, finding comfort in the knowledge that they survived the horrors of the haunted woods. Yet, the memory of the malevolent entity continues to haunt their dreams, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurks in the shadows.
On a foggy night, 4 friends, Jack, Mia, Ethan, and Sophie, arrived at Blackwood Manor. The old abandoned mansion was said to be cursed. They had come to investigate the legend. They pushed it open the heavy front door, which creaked loudly. Inside, the air was cold and stale. Dust covered every surface and cobwebs hung in the corners. The living room was filled with old furniture covered in white sheets. An antique chandelier hung from the ceiling, and a grand piano stood in the corner. Suddenly, the piano played a single, eerie note, causing everyone to jump. They moved to the library, where shelves of dusty books lined the walls. Jack picked up an old book, and as he opened it, a cold breeze swept through the room, making the candles flicker. They entered a long hallway filled with old portraits. The eyes of the portraits seemed to follow them as they walked. Mia shivered, feeling a chill run down her spine. At the end of the hallway, they found a door leading to the basement. Despite their fear, they decided to go down. The wooden stairs creaked under their weight, and the air grew colder with each step. The basement was cold and damp. Strange symbols were drawn on the walls. In the corner, they saw a ghostly figure of a woman in a tattered dress. She reached out to them, and they felt an icy chill. Terrified, they ran up the stairs and out of the house. The door slammed shut behind them, and they could still hear the ghostly whispers. They vowed never to return. Back at their homes, the friends sat together, still shaken by their experience. They knew they had encountered something truly terrifying and decided never to speak of it again.
In a secluded forest, shrouded in mist and mystery, stood an old mansion, long abandoned and forgotten by time. Its towering facade loomed ominously over the surrounding trees, its windows dark and empty. Despite the warnings of locals, a group of friends decided to explore the mansion, drawn by the allure of its haunted reputation. The group consisted of 4 friends, Alex, Sarah, Mike, and Emily. With a mix of excitement and trepidation, they approached the mansion, their footsteps echoing in the silence of the forest. Alex, the leader of the group, was determined to uncover the mansion's secrets, while Sarah and Emily exchanged nervous glances, and Mike tried to mask his fear with bravado. Inside the mansion, the air was heavy with dust and decay. Cobwebs adorned the ceilings, and the floorboards creaked ominously underfoot. As they explored the dimly lit halls, they couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, and strange whispers seemed to echo through the empty rooms. As they delved deeper into the mansion, the whispers grew louder, and the shadows seemed to twist and contort in the flickering light. Suddenly, they stumbled upon a room filled with strange artifacts and arcane symbols. A sense of dread washed over them as they realized they had stumbled upon something ancient and malevolent. Suddenly, a chilling wind swept through the room, extinguishing their flashlights and plunging them into darkness. Panic set in as they heard unearthly whispers and felt cold fingers brush against their skin. Frozen with fear, they realized they were not alone in the mansion. The shadows themselves were alive and hungry for their souls. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, the friends fled from the mansion, their screams echoing through the halls. The shadows pursued them relentlessly, twisting and contorting in their wake. Bursting through the front door, they stumbled into the forest, gasping for breath as they prayed for escape from the nightmare. As they caught their breath, the friends knew they had escaped the mansion's clutches, but the memory of their terrifying ordeal would haunt them forever. As they made their way back to civilization, they vowed never to speak of their experience, lest the shadows find them once more and drag them back into the darkness. 4 friends, Jake, Emily, Noah, and Lily, stood outside an old, abandoned house on a dare. The house was infamous in their town for being haunted, but they decided to spend the night there to prove their bravery. They pushed open the rusty gate and walked to the front door, which creaked loudly as they opened it. Inside, the house was dark and musty, with broken furniture and cobwebs everywhere. In the living room, they saw an old, dusty couch and a broken chandelier. Suddenly, a cold breeze blew through the room, making them shiver. They heard a faint whisper, but couldn't tell where it came from. They decided to explore upstairs. The wooden stairs creaked with every step. At the top, they found a long hallway with several closed doors. They heard a strange scratching sound coming from one of the rooms. They opened the door to the room and saw a rocking chair moving on its own. The temperature dropped suddenly, and they saw the faint outline of a ghostly figure in the corner. The figure whispered, "Leave this place." Panicking, they ran downstairs and found a door leading to the basement. Despite their fear, they decided to investigate. The basement was even colder and darker. They found strange symbols on the walls and old, dusty furniture. In the basement, they heard footsteps behind them. Turning around, they saw the ghostly figure again, now clearer and more menacing. The ghost raised its hand, and the friends felt an icy wind pushing them towards the stairs. Screaming, they ran up the stairs and out of the house, the door slamming shut behind them. They didn't stop running until they were far from the house. They vowed never to return, and to never speak of what they had seen. Ravenwood Manor had always been shrouded in mystery and fear. On a cold, misty evening, Alex, a young journalist with a thirst for the unknown, arrived at the manor. The gates were rusty and covered in ivy, and as Alex pushed them open, they creaked ominously. The mansion loomed in the distance, its dark windows staring back like lifeless eyes. Alex pushed open the heavy wooden door, which groaned in protest. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the scent of decay. He turned on his flashlight, revealing a grand but dilapidated foyer. Dust-covered chandeliers hung from the ceiling, and old furniture lay draped in white sheets. His footsteps echoed in the vast, empty space as he ventured deeper inside. As Alex explored the mansion, he felt a sudden chill. Turning around, he saw a shadowy figure at the end of the hallway. The figure vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving his heart racing. Determined to find answers, he made his way to the library, hoping to uncover the mansion's dark past. In the library, Alex found rows of dusty old books. As he searched through them, he heard faint whispers and the sound of pages turning on their own. He discovered an old journal belonging to the mansion's original owner, Lord Ravenwood. The entries spoke of dark rituals and a curse that had been placed on the house and its inhabitants. Alex's exploration led him to a room filled with mirrors. As he walked through, his reflection seemed to move on its own, eyes following him with an unsettling intensity. One mirror in particular caught his attention. In it, he saw the ghostly figure of a woman crying, her eyes pleading for help. Alex reached out to touch the mirror, but the image vanished. Alex discovered a hidden door behind a tattered curtain in the study. He descended the creaky stairs into a dark, musty basement. The room was filled with strange symbols painted on the walls and old, dusty books scattered on a table. He found a journal detailing the dark rituals and a curse placed on the house by Lord Ravenwood. As Alex read the journal, the basement grew colder. A ghostly figure of Lord Ravenwood appeared, his face twisted with rage. He pointed at Alex and screamed, "You should not have come here!" The walls shook, and the air filled with a chilling wind. Alex knew he had to leave immediately. Alex bolted up the stairs, the spirit's screams echoing behind him. He raced through the mansion, the walls seeming to close in on him. He burst through the front door and into the night, gasping for breath. The house stood silent and still, but he could feel the weight of its curse pressing down on him. Back in his apartment, Alex reviewed the photos and notes he had taken. The evidence of the haunting was undeniable. He wrote his article, revealing the dark history of Ravenwood Manor. As he finished, he felt a cold draft and heard Lord Ravenwood's voice whisper, "You cannot escape the curse." Alex knew the haunting was far from over. Emma, a young writer in her late 20s, inherits an old mansion called Ravenwood Manor from her estranged uncle. She decides to visit the house, hoping it will be a quiet place to write her novel. As she arrives, she feels an unsettling chill in the air. The house, surrounded by dark woods, looks like it hasn't been touched in years. Vines creep up the stone walls, and the windows are dark and foreboding. On her first night, Emma struggles to sleep. The house creaks and groans as if it's alive. She hears footsteps in the hallway and the faint sound of whispers. When she investigates, she finds nothing but darkness and silence. She returns to bed, feeling uneasy. The next day, while exploring the house, Emma discovers a locked door in the basement. Curious, she searches the house and finds an old, rusty key hidden in a drawer. She uses the key to unlock the door and finds a small room filled with old furniture, cobwebs, and a large ornate mirror covered with a cloth. Emma removes the cloth from the mirror and, to her shock, sees the reflection of a young girl standing behind her. When she turns around, no one is there. The mirror begins to show disturbing images of past events in the house, including a girl being trapped and crying for help. Emma feels a chill run down her spine. Determined to find out more, Emma searches the house and finds an old diary hidden behind a loose brick in the fireplace. The diary belonged to her uncle and details a tragic story of a girl named Lily who lived in the house and mysteriously disappeared. Emma realizes the ghost she saw as Lily, trapped in the mirror. Emma decides to perform a seance to communicate with Lily's spirit. She sets up candles and chants words from the diary. The room grows cold and Lily's ghost appears, revealing that she was trapped by a dark ritual performed by Emma's uncle. Lily begs Emma to free her. Following Lily's instructions, Emma gathers the items needed to break the ritual: a locket, a piece of Lily's clothing, and a special incantation. As she performs the ritual, the house shakes violently, and a dark, malevolent spirit tries to stop her. Emma persists, chanting the incantation louder and louder. The dark spirit attacks, but Emma continues the ritual, calling out to Lily for strength. A bright light fills the room, and the dark spirit screams before dissipating into nothingness. Lily's spirit smiles gratefully at Emma before ascending into the light, finally freed. With the haunting over, the house feels lighter and more welcoming. Emma finishes her novel, inspired by Lily's story. She decides to keep Ravenwood Manor and transform it into a place of peace and creativity. Sitting on the porch, she feels a deep connection to the house and its history, ready for a new beginning.
Grimsby Manor had a dark history that intrigued many, but only a few dared to explore its secrets. On a foggy autumn evening, Sarah, a young journalist with a passion for the paranormal, arrived at the mansion. She parked her car at the rusty gates, feeling a chill run down her spine. The mansion stood ominously in the distance, its windows like dark, watchful eyes. Sarah pushed open the creaking door of Grimsby Manor. Inside, the air was cold and musty. She turned on her flashlight, revealing a grand but decaying foyer. Dust and cobwebs covered every surface, and old furniture lay shrouded in white sheets. Her footsteps echoed through the vast, empty space as she ventured further inside. As Sarah explored the mansion, she felt a sudden chill. Turning around, she saw a shadowy figure at the end of the hallway. The figure disappeared as quickly as it appeared, leaving her heart pounding. Determined to uncover more, she made her way to the library, hoping to find records of the mansion's dark past. In the library, Sarah found rows of dusty old books. As she searched through them, she heard faint whispers and the sound of pages turning on their own. She discovered an old diary belonging to the mansion's original owner, Lord Grimsby. The entry spoke of dark rituals and a curse that had been placed on the house and its inhabitants. Sarah's exploration led her to a room filled with mirrors. As she walked through, her reflection seemed to move on its own, eyes following her with an unsettling intensity. One mirror in particular caught her attention. In it, she saw the ghostly figure of a woman crying, her eyes pleading for help. Sarah reached out to touch the mirror, but the image vanished. Sarah discovered a hidden door behind a tattered curtain in the study. She descended the creaky stairs into a dark, musty basement. The room was filled with strange symbols painted on the walls and old, dusty books scattered on a table. She found a journal detailing the dark rituals and a curse placed on the house by Lord Grimsby. As Sarah read the journal, the basement grew colder. A ghostly figure of Lord Grimsby appeared, his face twisted with rage. He pointed at Sarah and screamed, "You should not have come here." The walls shook and the air filled with a chilling wind. Sarah knew she had to leave immediately. Sarah bolted up the stairs, the spirit screams echoing behind her. She raced through the mansion, the walls seeming to close in on her. She burst through the front door and into the night, gasping for breath. The house stood silent and still, but she could feel the weight of its curse pressing down on her. Back in her apartment, Sarah reviewed the photos and notes she had taken. The evidence of the haunting was undeniable. She wrote her article, revealing the dark history of Grimsby Manor. As she finished, she felt a cold draft and heard Lord Grimsby's voice whisper, "You cannot escape the curse." Sarah knew the haunting was far from over. Blackwood Manor, a decrepit Victorian mansion, looms ominously amidst the dense forest. Boarded-up windows and crumbling facades tell tales of neglect and decay. The moon's pale light casts an eerie glow upon the scene, setting the stage for the horrors that lie within. The once manicured grounds of Blackwood Manor now lie in disarray, overrun by tangled bushes and fallen leaves. A thick fog rolls in from the surrounding forest, blanketing the landscape in an eerie haze, obscuring whatever secrets may be hidden within. The iron gates of Blackwood Manor, once grand and imposing, now stand tall and rusted, barely visible through the overgrowth that surrounds them. A chill wind howls through the trees, carrying with it a sense of foreboding that seems to seep into the very bones of those who dare to approach. Within Blackwood Manor, the foyer is shrouded in darkness, illuminated only by flickering candlelight that casts long shadows upon the faded wallpaper. Dust dances in the air, stirred by a silence so palpable it feels almost suffocating, as if the very walls are holding their breath. In the dining room of Blackwood Manor, a long table is set with decaying remnants of a feast long past. Cobwebs hang from the ornate chandelier above, their delicate threads swaying in the stagnant air. The scent of decay hangs heavy, a grim reminder of the mansion's forgotten glory days. Within Blackwood Manor's library, dusty shelves groan under the weight of forgotten knowledge. Moonlight filters through stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns upon the worn carpet. The air is thick with the smell of aging paper and the secrets contained within the ancient tomes that line the walls. In the ballroom of Blackwood Manor, a grand chandelier hangs from the ceiling, its once glistening crystals now dull and lifeless. Moonlight filters through broken windows, casting eerie shadows upon the cracked dance floor. The room echoes with the ghostly laughter of revelries long past, a haunting reminder of the mansion's former glory. Within the study of Blackwood Manor, dusty books and forgotten artifacts clutter every available surface. A single candle flickers on the desk, its feeble light casting eerie shadows upon the walls. Ghostly figures seem to dance in the darkness, their presence felt but never seen, adding to the sense of unease that permeates the room. In the bedroom of Blackwood Manor, a canopy bed stands like a relic of a bygone era, its once luxurious linens now covered in dust and cobwebs. Moonlight filters through cracked windows, casting eerie shadows upon the peeling wallpaper. The room is frozen in time, a silent witness to the horrors that haunt its halls. As dawn breaks over Blackwood Manor, the backyard is bathed in the soft light of a new day. The full extent of its decay is revealed in the morning light, as mist rises from the damp earth, shrouding the crumbling structures in an ethereal glow. The horrors of the night retreat with the darkness, but the memory of their presence lingers like a shadow upon the land. On a chilly autumn evening, 4 college friends, Megan, Brian, Laura, and Kevin, stand before the old decrepit house at the edge of town. The house, abandoned for years, is known for its dark past. Kevin challenges the group to spend the night inside. With nervous laughter and a sense of adventure, they agree and push open the creaky gate. The front door groans as it swings open, revealing a dark, musty interior. Dust motes dance in the beams of their flashlights. The smell of mold and decay fills the air. They step inside, the floorboards creaking under their feet, and the door slams shut behind them with a deafening bang. They make their way to the living room, where an old grand piano stands covered in dust. The wallpaper is peeling, and the room is filled with antique furniture draped in white sheets. Brian lifts a sheet to reveal a mirror, and they see a fleeting reflection of a shadowy figure behind them. A cold breeze brushes past them, and they hear a whispering sound, faint but unmistakable. Laura shivers and clutches Brian's arm. They decide to explore further, moving cautiously towards the source of the whispering. In the kitchen, they find old, rusted appliances and broken dishes scattered on the floor. The whispering grows louder, and they see a ghostly figure of a woman in tattered clothes standing by the stove. She disappears as quickly as she appeared, leaving them shaken. They discover a door leading to the basement. Kevin suggests going down, but Megan hesitates. The others convince her, and they descend the creaky stairs, their flashlights barely cutting through the darkness. The air grows colder, and an oppressive feeling surrounds them. In the basement, they find an old wooden table with strange symbols carved into it. A low growling noise fills the room, and they see glowing eyes staring at them from the shadows. Panic sets in, and they scramble back up the stairs, the door slamming shut behind them. Breathless and terrified, they race towards the front door. The house seems to come alive, with doors slamming and ghostly wails echoing through the halls. They struggle to open the front door, finally bursting out into the cool night air. The house falls silent behind them. Outside, they collapse onto the grass, catching their breath. The house looms dark and silent behind them. They vow never to return, each one haunted by the memories of what they saw and heard. The night air is cold, but they feel a sense of relief and safety. Back in their dorms, the friends try to return to normal life. But each night, they are haunted by nightmares of the ghostly woman and the glowing eyes in the basement. The whispers still echo in their minds, reminding them that some horrors can never be forgotten. At the edge of town lies the entrance to the Whispering Woods, a place shrouded in mystery and whispered tales of the supernatural. The path winds its way into the heart of the forest, disappearing into the dense mist that clings to the trees like a shroud. Deep within the woods, a group of friends has set up camp for the night, seeking adventure in the unknown depths of the forest. A small campfire crackles and hisses, casting flickering shadows that seem to dance in time with the whispers that echo through the trees. In a moonlit clearing, the dense canopy of trees creates an oppressive atmosphere, suffocating the sounds of the night. Moss-covered ground crunches beneath the feet of the campers as they venture deeper into the heart of the woods, a sense of foreboding settling over them like a suffocating blanket. Suddenly, the group stumbles upon an old, abandoned cabin nestled among the trees. Its windows are shattered, and the door hangs off its hinges, swinging ominously in the breeze. Moonlight filters through the cracks in the walls, casting eerie shadows that seem to dance and sway with a life of their own. Inside the cabin, the main room is a scene of decay and neglect. Decaying furniture sits shrouded in cobwebs, and dust hangs thick in the air like a tangible presence. The only sound is the creaking of floorboards beneath their feet and the distant whispers that seem to emanate from the very walls themselves. In the bedroom, a tattered mattress lies abandoned amidst peeling wallpaper and crumbling plaster. Moonlight filters weakly through a cracked window, casting eerie shadows that seem to writhe and twist upon the walls like living things. Descending into the basement, the air grows thick with the scent of decay and mold. Rusted chains hang ominously from the ceiling, their purpose long forgotten. The sound of dripping water echoes through the darkness, a constant reminder of the relentless passage of time. In the attic, cobwebs cling like shrouds to forgotten relics of a bygone era. Dusty trunks sit amidst a clutter of long-forgotten possessions, their secrets buried beneath layers of neglect. Moonlight filters through a broken skylight, casting an ethereal glow upon the abandoned treasures that lie hidden in the shadows. Venturing deeper into the heart of the woods, the trees close in around them like silent sentinels, their twisted branches reaching up towards the sky like gnarled fingers. Moonlight struggles to penetrate the thick canopy, casting eerie shadows that seem to dance and sway with a life of their own. As dawn breaks, the first light of morning filters through the trees, casting a golden glow over the clearing. The campfire smolders, its flames reduced to embers, and the forest is bathed in an eerie silence that seems to linger long after the night has passed.
In the heart of Ravenwood Forest lies an old, desolate road, shrouded in mist and mystery. Four friends, Sam, Emma, Ryan, and Jess, embark on a road trip and find themselves navigating this eerie path. Tall trees loom overhead, casting long shadows that seem to dance in the dim light. As they journey deeper into the forest, they come across the imposing gates of Ravenwood Manor, a dilapidated mansion said to be haunted by restless spirits. The wrought iron gates creak open ominously as they approach, inviting them into the depths of the estate. Inside Ravenwood Manor, the foyer is dimly lit by flickering candles, their flames casting dancing shadows on the walls. Dust hangs in the air, catching the faint moonlight that filters through the broken windows. The friends' footsteps echo through the empty halls as they explore the abandoned mansion. As they wander deeper into the mansion, they stumble upon a grand ballroom, its once opulent features now faded and decayed. The room is filled with the echo of music long gone, and the air is heavy with the scent of old perfume. Strange symbols adorn the walls, their meaning lost to time. Suddenly, ghostly figures materialize before them, translucent apparitions with hollow eyes and outstretched hands. The spirits drift through the ballroom, their movements graceful yet unsettling. The friends watch in horror as the ghosts draw closer, their presence filling the room with a chilling aura. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, the friends turn and flee from Ravenwood Manor, their hearts pounding with terror. They race through the empty halls, their breath ragged and their footsteps echoing off the walls. Behind them, the ghostly apparitions follow, their unearthly wails growing fainter as the friends struggle to escape. Lisa moves into her new apartment. The building is old but charming. As she unpacks, she finds a small, locked box in the back of a closet. Curious, she sets it aside to figure out how to open it later. That night, Lisa hears strange noises, whispers, and faint footsteps. She brushes it off as her imagination, but the noises persist, growing louder each night. She starts to feel uneasy. Unable to ignore the noises any longer, Lisa decides to focus on the box. She finds an old key hidden in the apartment and uses it to unlock the box. Inside, she discovers old photographs and a diary. Lisa reads the diary, which belonged to a woman named Margaret, who lived in the apartment years ago. The diary describes how Margaret was tormented by an unseen presence. Her final entry is a plea for help. Lisa begins to see strange things in mirrors, shadows moving, and a woman's face appearing briefly. One night, she sees Margaret's face clearly in the bathroom mirror, mouthing the words, "Help me." Frightened, Lisa seeks help from a local historian. He tells her about Margaret, who mysteriously disappeared. He believes Margaret's spirit is trapped and trying to communicate with Lisa. Determined to help Margaret, Lisa sets up a small shrine with candles and the photographs. She reads a passage from the diary aloud, asking Margaret to show her how to help. The room grows cold, and Margaret's ghost appears. Margaret's ghost leads Lisa to a hidden compartment in the floor. Inside, Lisa finds Margaret's skeletal remains. She calls the police, and they properly lay Margaret to rest. The haunting finally stops. With Margaret's remains found and given a proper burial, the apartment feels lighter. Lisa no longer hears the strange noises. She stands by the window, feeling at peace, knowing she helped Margaret find rest. Months later, a new tenant moves into the apartment. They find the diary Lisa left behind, with a note warning about the box. The apartment is now just a home, free from its dark past.
Lucy and her husband, Mark, move into an old Victorian-style house they bought at a bargain price. The house is large and filled with antique furniture. As they unpack, Lucy finds a covered portrait in the attic. She pulls off the cloth, revealing a beautiful woman with haunting eyes. She decides to hang it in the living room. That night, Lucy wakes up to strange noises, soft whispers and the sound of footsteps. She dismisses it as the house settling. When she looks at the portrait, the eyes seem to follow her. She feels a chill but convinces herself it's just her imagination. The next day, Lucy hears whispers coming from the living room. She finds Mark staring at the portrait, mesmerized. When she touches his shoulder, he snaps out of it, claiming he heard the woman in the portrait whispering his name. Lucy starts to feel uneasy about the painting. Determined to understand the painting's origins, Lucy visits the local library. She discovers that the woman in the portrait is Isabella, a former owner of the house who disappeared under mysterious circumstances. It's rumored that her spirit haunts the house. That night, the whispers grow louder, and Lucy sees a shadowy figure moving through the house. The air grows cold, and the portrait seems to come alive, the woman's expression changing to one of anger. Lucy feels a strong, malevolent presence. Lucy and Mark contact a paranormal investigator. The investigator explains that Isabella's spirit is trapped and angry. He suggests they find something that belonged to Isabella and use it to perform a ritual to release her spirit. Lucy searches the attic and finds an old diary belonging to Isabella. The diary details her life and the love she lost. It also mentions a locket that she cherished. Lucy finds the locket hidden in a secret compartment in the attic. Lucy and Mark, guided by the paranormal investigator, perform the ritual using the locket. As they chant, the house shakes, and Isabella's ghostly figure appears. She looks sad, but grateful. She reaches out, touches the locket, and then fades away. The air becomes warm and peaceful. With Isabella's spirit at rest, the house feels lighter and more welcoming. The whispers and footsteps stop. Lucy and Mark decide to stay and cherish the history of the house. They hang the locket in a special place to remember Isabella. Months later, Lucy and Mark enjoy their peaceful home. They often think about Isabella and the extraordinary events that brought them closer together. The house is no longer haunted, but the memories of the past live on in a peaceful way. Blackwood House stood isolated in the dense forest. Its windows were broken and the walls were cracked. As dusk set in, the sky turned an eerie orange and purple, casting a sinister glow on the decaying structure. Inside the house, the foyer was dark and filled with dust and cobwebs. An old creaky staircase led up to the second floor, and a broken chandelier hung from the ceiling, its crystals missing or shattered. The living room was filled with tattered furniture and a cold fireplace. A broken window let in a sliver of moonlight, illuminating the peeling wallpaper and the thick layer of dust that covered everything. The kitchen was a mess of broken cabinets and rusty appliances. A large wooden table in the center was covered in dust and cobwebs, and an old broken stove stood in the corner, untouched for years. The dining room featured a long table with an old tattered tablecloth. The chairs were scattered and overturned, and a single dusty candle sat at the center of the table, unlit and forgotten. The hallway was long and dark, with old creaky floorboards and faded wallpaper. Closed doors lined the hallway, each marked with a different ominous symbol, hinting at the secrets hidden within. The bedroom was dusty and old, with a large canopy bed covered in cobwebs. The curtains were tattered, and moonlight streamed in through a cracked window, casting eerie shadows on the floor. The attic was filled with old, forgotten items covered in dust and cobwebs. A single small window let in a beam of moonlight, illuminating strange old toys scattered on the floor. The air was thick with the smell of mold and decay. The basement was dark and damp, with stone walls and a dirt floor. Old rusty chains hung from the ceiling, and the air was thick with the smell of mold and decay. The sense of dread was palpable, as if the walls themselves whispered secrets. As dawn broke, Blackwood House was bathed in a soft golden light. The forest around it remained dark, but the first rays of the sun illuminated the decaying structure. The night's terror faded, but the house's haunting presence remained, a testament to its cursed history. Lily received a mysterious letter inviting her to an old mansion that once belonged to her ancestors. She had always been curious about her family's past and decided to visit. The mansion was isolated, surrounded by overgrown trees and an eerie silence. As she walked towards the door, the sky turned gray and the wind began to howl. Lily pushed open the heavy wooden door, which creaked loudly. Inside, the mansion was dark and dusty, with cobwebs hanging from the corners. An old chandelier hung precariously from the ceiling, and the air was thick with the scent of decay. The door slammed shut behind her, making her jump. Lily stepped into the grand hall, where portraits of stern-looking ancestors lined the walls. Their eyes seemed to follow her as she moved. She felt a chill run down her spine as she heard faint whispering. The room was dimly lit by the light filtering through the grimy windows. Lily found herself in the mansion's library, filled with dusty books and old furniture. An old leather-bound book lay open on a desk. As she approached, she saw it was a diary detailing strange rituals and mysterious disappearances. The air grew colder, and she felt an unseen presence watching her. Lily discovered a secret door behind a bookshelf. She hesitated but then pushed it open, revealing a dark, narrow staircase leading down. The air was damp and cold, With her flashlight in hand, she began to descend, the sound of her footsteps echoing in the silence. The basement was even colder, with strange symbols painted on the walls and an old wooden table in the center. On the table were ancient artifacts and melted candles. Lily felt an overwhelming sense of dread. She heard whispers growing louder, almost as if they were coming from the walls themselves. Lily's flashlight flickered and died, plunging her into darkness. Panic set in as the whispers turned into screams. She fumbled to turn the flashlight back on. When she did, she saw a ghostly figure standing by the table, staring at her with hollow eyes. She backed away in terror. Desperate to escape, Lily turned and ran up the stairs. The house seemed to come alive, with doors slamming and shadows moving around her. She reached the front door, threw it open, and ran into the stormy night, her heart pounding. She didn't stop until she reached her car. Breathing heavily, Lily glanced back at the mansion as she reached her car. In an upstairs window, she saw the ghostly figure watching her. The whispers faded, but the memory of that night would haunt her forever. She drove away, vowing never to return.